Minister Yilmaz, 2012 represents the 60th anniversary of Turkey joining NATO. How would you say NATO is perceived in Turkey, both by the politicians and the public in general?
Türkiye 1952 yılında NATO'ya
Through joining NATO in 1952, Turkey determined its direction and its security as the same as the West's. This was not a decision Turkey took only in 1952. This was the consequence of Turkey supporting Western values, let's not say Western, universal values, which are democracy, human rights, and core values of human rights based on the rule of law, with the West in the last 200 years and with the values that the West supports, seeking for its security within the West. Therefore, for Turkey, NATO means turning towards the West, a concrete expression of heading towards core human rights and the rule of law. You head towards the direction where you see your own security. Turkey's security is in the West. Turkey's preference is also the West. Your preferences indicate where you want to join, with Turkey joining NATO in 1952. Turkey showed that its fundamental choice is West NATO. Among the public, there is a perception that NATO provides enough security to Turkey. Therefore, the public is pleased. Even in 1952, earlier times, Turkey joined NATO with the joint agreement of the party in power and the main opposition party. Therefore, there is no discrimination about NATO among the public. Again, for today, as well as in terms of reaching to universal values and for the Turkey, who is seeking her for security in the West, in Turkey there is an agreement with a big majority in Turkey that believes that NATO is the right organization for Turkey's defense.
Do you feel that following the upheaval in North Africa and the Middle East starting in 2011 and continuing into 2012 makes Turkey's position in the Mediterranean far more important geopolitically?
Orta Doğu ve Doğu Akdeniz
Middle Eastern and East Mediterranean countries have been the cradle of many conflicts, transitions for many centuries. Still, this transitional process in the Middle East has not finished even today. Turkey has increased its income per capita 3 times, its national income more than 3 times in the last decade. So Turkey is in a good economic condition, both a Muslim country and a country that has democratic values and democracy, that is respectful to local values in this respect, that adopts democracy, and is an EU candidate country. For the countries in North Africa, the countries where the Arab Spring has been inspired, and for most of the countries in the Middle East, at least for a part of the public, these criteria are a model. They think that Turkey is partially showing that it is possible to develop and to reach a contemporary level of civilization while taking core values as a base, as well as to protect those values. And they take Turkey as a model. As a country inside NATO, with its increasing economic power, part of the West in terms of defense, an EU candidate country, Turkey is a good example for many countries in the Middle East. Look at the many countries in the Middle East today. One of the rare countries with peace and stability is Turkey. In Turkey, we have a very basic principle. Peace at home, peace in the world. Peace shall remain everywhere, both in our country, in the region, and in the world. We say that without neglecting the EU and NATO, but without forgetting the rest of the world, or the rest of the Middle East. Through cooperation, we can provide peace and stability in the Middle Eastern region. But providing peace and stability in the region is not something that Turkey can do by itself. The international community, EU, and NATO should also support Turkey in this direction to provide peace and stability in the Middle East. Why? Because Turkey knows the region better than outsiders. We have lived together approximately for 400 years, 500 years with some countries. Hence, the country that can solve their differences or understand them is Turkey. Therefore, as long as Turkey has support, we understand other countries. We are respectful to their values, and we want them to have peace without any malicious intentions. We have a general saying that everybody's wish is the heaven on the world. So, in the North African and Middle Eastern countries, what people are asking for is peace and living in a better world. Turkey is a good model for that. Compared to the past, Turkey is in a better condition. Thereby, Turkey can show its example model both in the Middle East and North Africa. As you know, the Middle East is the energy distribution zone for this energy distribution region. Turkey, being in NATO, has an additional contribution to the security of these energy lines. With the support of the EU and NATO, the security of these energy lines can be better provided, and there will be stability in the region. People who are living in this region need democracy, freedom, and bread as much as people in Europe. I think we can do it through cooperation.
Demokrasiye, hürriyete, ekmeğe ihtiyacı var. El birliğiyle biz bunu sağlayabiliriz diye düşünüyorum.
The NATO summit in Chicago in 2012 will focus heavily on smart defence. How do you feel that countries like Turkey can make more effort and become more successful in the area of smart defence?
Akıllı savunma sistemini Sayın Genel Sekreter
Smart defense is a project that has been brought to the agenda by the Secretary General, and Turkey has supported this from the beginning. Turkey is supporting over 160, actually approximately 170 projects, and joining many of them. With smart defense, the purpose is not cutting expenses, but spending money more efficiently. You will spend the same money, but you will be more efficient. You will use the money more efficiently and effectively. Therefore, what NATO wants will require bringing both specialization and priorities without creating any gaps. In the meantime, with joint projects, coordination will be required and increased cooperation. We have seen this and experienced it a lot in the past. The best example is building the F-35 CSF aircrafts. Inside and outside NATO, with Australia getting involved, a project that many countries had a joint interest in. Hence, with smart defense, using the money more efficiently is the principle, not spending less. With smart defense, specialization is essential. With smart defense, setting priorities of member nations inside NATO is important. Therefore, through prioritization, specialization, and cooperation, we can provide a much more efficient defense system with the same money. Turkey has now joined 167 projects and is leading some of them. As an example, we could add that Turkey agreed to host the new missile defense radar system in her territories recently. This is the best example of smart defense, the system that will be used for NATO's purposes. An agreement has been made with the United States. This has been a big step in providing a joint and more efficient defense system to NATO, with the ballistic missile defense system, with Turkey doing its part. And it is going to be declared at the Chicago summit that this ballistic missile defense system will reach interim operational capability.
Balistik füze sisteminin de geçici olarak faaliyete geçtiği de açıklanacaktır.